Irene, fire away. Irene, now the floor is yours. Maybe for the purposes of all the participants, this is being recorded, and then the second thing is that it's also live on YouTube and now on Zoom, just for purposes of clarity. So Irene, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jefferson. I hope I'm audible to everyone.
Oh, yes, you're audible.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Irene Karunji Sechitoleko. I'm a senior ICT infrastructure engineer at the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, and I shall be the moderator of this session. Today, we are very, very excited to have a very interesting panel. I'll introduce the names of the panelists. We have representatives from government, we have representatives from private sector, civil society, and academia. Representing from academia, we have Dr. Rehema Baguma from School of Computing at Makerere University. Thank you for being with us. From government, we have Mr. Joseph Tenywa from National Planning Authority. He's the head of ICT planning. We also have a representative from civil society, from Unwanted Witness. He's the head of legal, Mr. Alan Sempala Chigozi. Thank you for joining us today. Last but not least, we cannot forget our private sector, our key stakeholders. We represented by Mr. Dixon Kato from Stanbic Bank. He's the head of data and commercialization. Welcome our panelists for today. I also welcome the audience and I acknowledge our audience representation from academia, private sector, government, and our development partners, as well as the business community. Thank you for joining us in this session. Today, we are here to be part of a celebrations of the Data Privacy Day. Today, we shall be unpacking the National Data Strategy, as well as discussing how this strategy it can be leveraged on for data privacy. Our stakeholders, we as the Ministry of ICT have been working on a national data strategy together with our partners and the major key stakeholders in the data ecosystem. The national data strategy development of this national data strategy started in May 2023, and we've gone quite a long way. Why this data strategy? We believe that this strategy will help us to address some of the grave challenges that we are facing as a country and leverage opportunities within Uganda's data economy. In our journey as we were developing the strategy, there were several concerns that we identified, which included inadequate capacity for data utilization and innovation, the lack of a comprehensive data governance framework, unstandardized data formats, and issues with discoverability, accessibility, and interoperability. We still have issues around privacy, we still have issues around sharing, and many others. So without wasting any more time, I would like to now direct the discussion to our panel today. I'll ask Dr. Rebecca Baguma, could you share with us, from your opinion, what are the key objectives and goals of the National Data Strategy, and how do you think they would contribute to building a vibrant, data-driven ecosystem?
Thank you, Irene. A small correction, my name is Rehema Baguma, not Rebecca, but Rebecca was a blessed woman. So may I also get more blessings.
Thank you for that correction.
Okay, can you kindly repeat the question, Irene?
Okay. This question is actually directed to all the panelists we have today. We just want to understand what do you think are the key objectives and goals of the National Data Strategy, and how do you think they will contribute to building a vibrant data-driven ecosystem?
Okay, thank you once again, Irene. The objectives of the National Data Strategy and how they will contribute to building a vibrant data ecosystem. Actually, this is my first involvement in the National Data Strategy process. Nevertheless, I have my own aspirations and expectations given my orientation. So I look at the National Data Strategy contributing to building capacity, that needed capacity, or promoting and enforcing, fostering development of the needed capacity in order to be able to utilize data to achieve socio-economic development in the country. So we need different human resource at different levels in order to be able to benefit from the data-driven, achieve and benefit from the data-driven economy. We need data scientists, of course. We need data engineers. Some of these are synonymous. They are used differently in different institutions: data engineers, data scientists, data analysts, data protection officers, data protection administrators, etc. So we need different kinds of people. Apart from technical capacity, we also need general awareness and appreciation of the value of data among policymakers, among institutional leaders, and among the general population and staff in institutions, to be able to appreciate and go ahead and exploit, use data and datify their institutions in order to benefit from this data, and of course promote other things like data sharing, data quality, etc. I think let me stop there for now, and I allow other panelists to add on. Thank you.
You can allow one or two panelists to just briefly add on to the submission. Mr. Tenua.
Well, what I have to say is that we have participated in the whole process of development of this national data strategy, and largely so because as a planning authority, we are one of the largest users of the available data. We do not generate our own data, and we rely on most of the agencies, both private and public, to feed us with information, which we later analyze to help us get relations that inform decision-making and planning. So I want to say that one of the biggest challenges we faced as a planning authorities, we have very many unstandardized sources of data, and sometimes it becomes a challenge on deciding on which source of data you should focus on and take to inform your decisions. So we believe that this national data strategy will realign government efforts in trying to standardize, trying to rally efforts towards a common goal in having accurate data, and also trying to work together to share the data that is available. In many instances of planning, we have many data gaps, and yet some of the data exists among the data collectors, but we are not able to, in one way or another, to get it. So we believe that this is the right way to go in trying to bring an integrated and a convergence of all data producers to one area, one direction, so that we can, in our from our side, so that we can be able to get clean data sources. I would say that's what I can add for now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tenra. So we are now moving over to the private sector. As we all know, private sector collects a lot of data that we believe as a country can benefit the country as well as businesses and other stakeholders to achieve this socio-economic transformation agenda for our country. Over to you, Mr. Dickson Kato. In your view, how can the National Data Strategy address concerns related to data privacy and security while promoting data sharing for innovation?
Thank you so much, Irene. The National Data Strategy, one of the main objective for the National Data Strategy is to maximize the value of data, data being a critical asset. And it also seeks to address concerns around data governance, around building capacity for data utilization. So I believe this will have a very important role in how we manage or how we treat, how we correct, how we store customer data from a private banking sector perspective. So I see this as being an enabler to enhance our security measures. I see this as an enabler to provide safe frameworks on how we can share data, not among ourselves, between the private sector, to the extent possible that from a banking perspective, if you're a client and let's say you're at a supermarket checkout, can we be able to safely share information between you and the supermarket? And at that point, if you need credit, for example, then data is shared to the extent that we can give it to you there and then. So I see it as an enabler to really improve generally on how we utilize data, on how we store, how we collect data. Then on, I think you also talked about the second part. Can you repeat the second part of the question for me, Irene?
All right. So basically, we wanted to hear your opinion on how this national data strategy can be used to address concerns related to privacy and security, but as well ensure promoting the data sharing for innovation. So just what kind of measures do you believe should be in place through the national data strategy?
So we, as a banking sector, we are privileged to correct one of the most sensitive data. Other people have a privilege of, if a customer, you can happily, take a photo of you having a meal, for example, at a restaurant. From a banking perspective, we don't have that privilege. People don't, take photos we store and correct very sensitive information. It is important that our data subjects or the customers that we correct data for understand how we use the information. So it's very important that we become very transparent about why we are collecting that information. We become very transparent about who we are sharing it with. And we create awareness sessions on why we are collecting information. Bank products have evolved over time, and it's not strange for a bank, for example, to ask you your favorite color as an example, because that could feed into a model somewhere that would recommend you maybe an insurance product, because data shows that, for example, people that own red cars are more likely to buy insurance. So when a bank asks you something like that, it's important they explain to you why they are collecting that information. So it will be really a collaboration between us and the data subjects, creating awareness on why we are collecting data, but also being transparent on what we are using that data for. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll also ask the same question to our panelist from Unwanted Witness. In your view, Mr. Alan Sempala, how do you think this strategy can help to address concerns around data privacy and security while promoting data sharing for innovation? As you very well know, that data sharing is very key, and lots of our innovators need data in order to be able to create better products, better solutions for the problems we are facing, and also build our economy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and for the question and for the opportunity to contribute. I would first of all thank the Ministry of ICT.
Mr. Alan, your microphone is on, but we cannot hear you. Jefferson, Anita, maybe you can assist.
So let me reach out to Alan. In the meantime, we can move to the next person as I reach out to Alan.
All right. The next question would be to Mr. Tenua. In what ways can the National Data Strategy facilitate collaboration among different stakeholders, including government agencies, businesses, civil society, and academia? As we know, viewers, that we have the Digital Transformation Roadmap, and in this, the roadmap aspires to use the National Data Strategy to address the challenges that are facing our country, that challenges that prohibit us from using data to promote our economy and for socioeconomic transformation. One of the key enablers that it also emphasizes in the roadmap is collaboration. Mr. Tenua, could you please, in your opinion, guide us on how this data strategy would best be facilitated to enable collaboration, or how collaboration can be best facilitated among the different stakeholders? Because this strategy is not only for government, it's for the business community, civil society, and academia, and all other stakeholders. Over to you, Mr. Tenua.
Okay, thank you, Irene, and the overall organizers of this webinar. In my view, you see, the National Planning Authority is a national, it's at a national level. It's not planning for only ICT per se. And so, as I said, and I've always said that data is a very big component of planning. You cannot undertake reasonable decision making without data. It informs predictions, it informs strategy, it informs the budgets, it informs the plans, because numbers have a direct impact on your decision where to channel the resources. So, as I said, we've had a very big challenge, and it's actually still persisting, of non-coordinated data sources. Some areas, actually, one of the biggest challenges we have in planning is lack of data per se. And this is where I really want the private sector to come in very strongly. We know that there are some large players in data collection among the private sector. They have this data, they collect it through their operations, but many times we don't get this data seeping through to government agencies to aid our planning. We plan, and yet there's some level of duplication on our part as government, because in many instances we are not aware of the existing data sources, especially within the private sector. So we want to call upon the private sector to join the rally towards attaining a focused data ecosystem. Let the private sector be active in sharing this data with government. And I would actually implore, as a planning authority, I would say we shall work with the Ministry of ICT to have data sharing fora. How we wish we could have the private sector and the civil society invited in some of these data sharing fora, so that they can get to tell us which data they have, what they've collected in the past years. This data can really then seep through into the national data inventory, and we can get it. UBOS can pick it, then we can refine it for our decision making. But going back to the question, how we can leverage government to participate in the success of this strategy. I think as a national agency, we have a lot to do with the raising public awareness and advocacy for this strategy. We've started on it so far, and at all fora where we are involved, we have tried to implore the data collectors to align their data processes to the tenets of the national data strategy. So we have a big role to play in terms of public awareness and the advocacy at the government level. Then two, as one of the primary users of data, we have a role to play in data quality assurance. Data quality assurance. You know, when you're at the tail end of the use of something, you will easily tell the quality, because once it's not well processed to your last level, then you can easily tell the people who are collecting it downwards to about the quality gaps, and then they can form corrective action to correct the data. So we believe that working with institutions like UBOS, Ministry of ICT, we can develop standard data quality standards that can then be adopted by the various data collectors to improve the data quality in the country. Then also we can participate in data governance and the standards development, because we know what we require at the level of planning and decision making. We can easily advise the various players in aligning their data to nationally accepted standards, so that we can have acceptable and trusted data. Of course, I will not to forget that as a planning authority, we have a big role to play in promoting this national data strategy. We are already in the process of developing the National Development Plan 4, that is the NDP 4. We are supposed to have it begin in the next 2 years, but we've started the process of formulating it. As of now, we're in NDP 3, but we have started the process of developing NDP 4. And as one of the key elements that we have picked is the promotion of the national data strategy to enable the country, as I said earlier, focus on clean and acceptable data for development. So that's the role we can play. We've already picked it. The national data strategy is in line with the national development agenda. It's already aligned to the digital transformation program, and it's also aligned to the national the digital transformation roadmap. So we have already picked the tenets of the national data strategy in the NDP4. This is a role we have to play if we are to promote this strategy. And we are directly concerned because we are at the apex of data usage. If we get wrong data, we'll plan wrongly. So we are very, very supportive of this strategy. And as an agency, we will promote it as much as possible because we know once we get clean data, we shall achieve the national development goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tenwa. Still on collaboration, it's one of the one of the enablers that are very core to seeing a successful implementation of this national data strategy. And this collaboration should be between public and private sectors, with each stakeholder playing their role. Over to you, Professor Ms. Rehema Baguma. As a prominent figure in the School of Computing at Makerere University, we are looking at collaboration between public and private sectors. How do you perceive the role of academic institutions in contributing to the development and implementation of the national data strategy in Uganda? And together with that, I would like you to also say something about how can the School of Computing leverage the strategy to enhance its curriculum and prepare students for the evolving landscape of data-driven technologies and practices.
Okay, once again, thank you very much, Irene. I am not...
Dr. Rehema?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm not prominent. I don't think I'm prominent, but thank you for the promotion. On collaboration, what's our role? What do I see as our role in the development and implementation of the national data strategy as an academic institution, and in particular as a School of Computing and IT? Earlier on, I talked about providing the needed human resource. So I will talk more about the other aspects, which is research, and of course, and innovations. So in addition to developing the needed human resource and preparing them to be ready to contribute and thrive in a data-driven economy, we are also supposed, or we should lead in research on different aspects of strategic actions of the national data strategy. You've heard already there are several challenges, and as researchers, we respond to existing and anticipated gaps or problems or challenges. Joseph has mentioned a number of them: data formats, uncoordinated data sources, unavailability of the data itself. And the data is there, but it's not accessible. It's available in different places, but in silos. So it's not available for use, quality of data. So there are several challenges us as researchers we can respond to. And of course, in addition to responding to these, we should also engage in developing tools, technologies, and models that enhance data sharing, data availability, data accessibility, interoperability, standardization, and all the things we need in place in our data ecosystem in order to have an effective data-driven economy. So that is on our role. So, and of course, we need to collaborate. We shouldn't do this alone. We need to collaborate with different stakeholders in government, problem owners. We call them problem owners or clients because they understand best their problems. We are often accused of sitting in our offices. They call Makerere the ivory tower. I don't know whether we still have the ivory tower. Sitting on our hill and we imagine issues. So we have a small understanding of the problems, and then we we say we are developing solutions for these problems, so generating knowledge to address these problems, but collaboration addresses this challenge. We get down to the clients or the problem owners, work with them and address the problems from their perspective. So by the time we come up with these solutions, with this knowledge, addressing a given knowledge gap, or addressing a need, it will be effective because we'll have collaborated with the problem owners and will have effectively understood what the actual problem is and where it's supposed to be implemented. Anything else on collaboration? And of course, we are supposed to innovate, come up with new innovative data technologies, the ones which are adaptable to our context, and other aspects like datification models which can work in our environment, and many other things in research. In addition, around partnerships, the other aspects we can collaborate on is internships. And please, government and private sector, when we knock on your doors, now you know the importance. So Dixon, when we come to you and say we need 5, can you give us 5 slots in your department? Kindly be positive, because you know the reason why. These are the people, by the time they come out, if we have collaborated in training them, there will be super products. Same with government, same with the NGOs, the gentleman from Unwanted Witness. So we need to collaborate also on internships. If you have arrangements for apprenticeships, which are better than internships, please also reach out to us, but also us, we shall reach out to you. And we hope for a positive response. Then concerning the curriculum, how can we enhance the curriculum to leverage successful development and implementation of the national data strategy? We need to respond to this process and align our curriculum to the principles, skill requirements, and strategic actions in the national data strategy. So we need to incorporate things around data governance, ethical data use, effective data exchange, the quality, all these issues which we are talking about should be addressed so that our students, by the time they complete, they have skills and knowledge in these areas and can be very useful and fit within the workforce. Anything else around curriculum? I think I can stop it there for now. Thank you, Irene.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much, Doctor. That was really quite comprehensive. And I'm sure the audience has really taken note and has appreciated what the academia is doing and has plans of doing. So I have 2 more questions that will be directed to representative from private sector and then our representative from civil society before we move to the audience to hear from them, and also if they have any other questions for the panelists. One thing I want to say also in reaction to your submission, Dr. Rehema, we've had several feedback from stakeholders, others saying they are data scientists, they don't have jobs, whereas others are saying that they need data scientists, but they are not available. So is there a gap or is there not a gap? Is there a gap or there's no gap? So I think there is definitely need to create awareness around the value of data, and this awareness cutting across all institutions and all stakeholders in government and private sector, so that we create that demand, because we've understood and we need to also create more awareness and appreciation of data for business, for provision of services, etc. As well as academia also doing their part to ensure that the private sector gets the right skills and does not and is able to fill those gaps that they need, those that have started appreciating and leveraging on data to improve on their businesses, and later on, of course, economic transformation of the country. So the question that I have for you, I'll move to Mr. Alansim. Sempala, I hope you are able to hear me and are able to speak.
Yeah,
Irene,
I'm able to hear you.
Irene,
Yes, Dr. Rehema?
you tickled me before you move on to Alan. Alan, I'm really sorry. Can I respond for a minute to what you the statement you made? Some people saying we need data scientists, we don't see them, and data science saying we have no jobs.
Yes, please.
Just in 1 minute. So that's very true. Some people are looking for a certain kind of data science, they are not getting them. And also we have some data scientists looking for jobs and they are not getting them. Why is this? Of course, we are still in short supply of very good data scientists. So we also need to enhance our training in academic institutions so that we produce the more quality and quantity, but also because of the untapped potential of people, the institutions out there are not yet aware of the potential of data. Others are aware, but they don't know what to do. So there are no positions for these people when they complete in these institutions. And this is one of the areas I believe the National Data Strategy is going to help on as more awareness is built, as more awareness is created at different levels of private and government sector. We are going to see more people datifying their institutions. And as they datify, more openings are going to come up, and these people will have jobs, as we also enhance the quality and quantity of our products. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rebecca, for that addition. Over to you, Mr. Sempala. As we know, civil society organizations like Unwanted Witness often play a watchdog role in ensuring data privacy. I mean, we're here today to celebrate data privacy, right? How can organizations like Unwanted Witness actively engage in shaping and monitoring the implementation of the National Data Strategy to ensure individual privacy rights? In addition to that question, I would also like you to also consider giving us your view on how Unwanted Witness can also contribute to the improvement of data governance, discoverability, and accessibility, and ensure the responsible use of data in this evolving digital economy.
Thank you very much, Irene. So sorry for to our participants and fellow panelists for the glitch earlier. Irene, if you could permit me, let me kindly briefly go through my first question you posed to me, and then I will head straight to the two questions you just posed, if you don't mind. Lovely. Now, you had earlier asked for the benefits of the National Data Strategy. Certainly, I want to congratulate the Ministry of ICT and other partners for this timely initiative. It's quite timely, and I hope that other countries quite copy or pick a leaf from what this strategy has to offer. So, a comprehensively done strategy has several benefits, but for benefit of time, let me just go through 2 or 3. One, good data-driven decision making. You know, by harnessing data effectively, governments can easily make more informed decisions across various sectors, leading to better policies and programs and services. Not only governments, but also private sector. You know, well, we have several banks. We have a colleague from a banking sector here. Those from the banking sector will tell you they need personal information for them to effectively deliver, you know, tailor-made services and products for their clients. He earlier mentioned that they even go to an extent of picking the color, the favorite color of someone and the birthday of someone. And I've been a recipient of birthday messages, which make me really feel appreciated and loved by my bank. That is personal information. So with a national data strategy that streamlines transparency, that streamlines best practices on how this data should be handled and all that, good decision making for business delivery or service delivery would come in really handy. The other thing is economic innovation. certainly, data can fuel innovation and drive economic growth, certainly by providing insights that enable businesses to identify opportunities, but also the transparency and accountability that comes with such strategies. It can promote transparency and accountability by making more and more data being accessible to public, enabling public to hold governments and institutions accountable, for the data they are collecting. We've seen several instances where sometimes banks, or rather government institutions, collect personal data, and no effort is actually made to ensure that this data is explained, how it's used, who accesses it, what is the security of this data. But with this strategy, I'm sure the sky is the limit. We'll have more transparency and accountability. And lastly on that, the data security and privacy. A well-designed strategy can address concerns regarding data security, privacy, and also ensuring that the sensitive information is protected while ensuring, data-driven initiatives. So generally, on that point, a national strategy can serve as a roadmap for unlocking the potential of data to address societal challenges and drive economic growth and improve the overall well-being, of our citizens. So kudos to the minds behind it. It's quite a timely initiative, and as Unwanted Witness, we will always be behind such initiatives, promote them, advise where we can, and make sure that at least we have a safe digital economy for all. Now, back to what Unwanted Witness can do, and to the two questions. One of the initiatives that we've been pretty much involved in is lobbying and advocacy. We've been at the forefront many times of influencing, policymakers to incorporate, privacy, protection in any of the legislations that are done, or guidelines that are done, but also guiding on the practices where we think that a certain organization has gone, astray with its mandate and obligations as enshrined in the Data Protection and Privacy Act and the regulations there too. We've made sure that at least we try to guide and monitor and document and remind them of the obligations, to make sure that at least this they trade the correct line, they trade transparently and fairly. Of course, creating public awarenesses, we try to, and we are still at it. We will create more and more awareness to make sure that at least one, data collectors, those who are in the business of collecting data, are transparent, but also most importantly, they get to know what the obligations are, because with collecting of data comes with a lot of obligations and duties that data collectors have to undertake, but also to create awareness amongst those whose data is collected, the data subjects whose data is collected for business operations. So we've done several campaigns, including Beramu, where we encourage especially youngsters to be very aware of who collects their data, and whether that person who's collecting the data actually understands their mandate, or they're actually collecting what they are supposed to collect. We live in an era where, honestly, you can't live without your data being collected, because you need a SIM card, you need a bank account, you need you need public services, and certainly there is no way you could get such services without parting with your personal data. So at this point, we've always empowered data subjects. As you give out your information, ask the questions, the important questions. Where are they collecting the data? How long are they keeping that data? How safe is the data? And who else actually accesses the data? Because we've had instances of data being collected for one thing and actually used for another. And some instances actually happen where the data collector doesn't even know that the platform they are using actually has trackers that send that information to online advertisers like Facebook, So you get trackers in your website, trackers in your applications. This goes to banks, this goes to transport companies, all those who have apps and websites. You know, certainly for a website to work very well effectively or an app to work very well, it needs trackers. But where even the collector is not aware that there are trackers in the app they're using to collect information, then it becomes very scary to an extent that they are sharing information with third parties without their knowledge. So if anything happens, they actually even don't know what happened, you know. So such strategies are very important and timely to actually educate and guide people along the correct path. So as unwanted witness, we are strong on public awareness and of course monitoring and evaluation. We've been at it and we will still be at it. We've established mechanisms and implemented several of them. Similarly, we'll monitor the implementation of the strategy as well. We'll monitor the practices of those who collect personal data. We have the privacy scorecard report. We've just released the 3rd edition of the privacy scorecard report, which assesses the compliancy of different data collectors. How are they actually complying? Are they walking the talk? Several have privacy policies on their websites, but are they actually practicing what they are preaching? Several are actually even not registered. Several are not registered with the country regulator.
Mr. Sempala, we'll need to wind up this your session.
Yes.
Maybe you can summarize in less than 1 minute so that we can move to the next panelist. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. I'll summarize with the second question that you asked, what we are willing to do about what you asked. It's basically we'll continue doing our advocacy and continue, you know, monitoring the laws that govern, you know, data protection, also monitoring the implementation of the strategy when ready. We'll continue building the capacity. We've been at it several times, training, you know, data collectors on how to effectively handle personal data. We'll continue developing tools and resources. Several of them this year are in offing. We issue several guidelines to specific sectors on how best to handle personal data and transparently, you know, use it without issues of affecting the privacy of those they are serving. So thank you very much, Irene. Sorry, it's been a mouthful of ideas here and there, but I thank you for this opportunity and thank you, panelists, for listening in.
Thank you. We just have, unfortunately, this has been such an interesting discussion, and we wanted to give also the audience enough time to ask questions and also contribute. But there is one question that I really want to ask Mr. Dixon Kato, if you could maybe answer it in 1 minute, regarding trust, building trust. And this data strategy, one of its main ambitions is building trust with customers, with citizens in our country. So the question is, how do you foresee the national data strategy impacting customer data management practices, and what steps ought to be taken to build trust with customers in the financial sector? Particularly, I'd like you to emphasize the steps that ought to be taken to build trust with customers in the financial sector. Yes, thank you very much. Briefly, thank you.
Thank you, Irene. I didn't get the first part of the question. I was disconnected.
So the first part was, yes, the first part was, as a representative from the banking sector, how do you foresee the national data strategy impacting customer data management practices? And what steps ought to be taken to build trust with customers in the financial sector? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Eileen. I had mentioned that one of the key concerns that the national data strategy seeks to address include data governance, right? So as a banking sector, what I feel the national data strategy, or how I feel the national data strategy will impact customer management practices, is it will set up or at least I expect it to set up frameworks on how we can enhance data security measures. It also talks about sharing of data, but you cannot really share data unless, if I'm to share data with you, then you should expect it in a particular format. So standardizing, setting up frameworks to standardize data formats in how it will be shared is something that I hope and I believe the national data strategy will address. But also you cannot share data if it's everywhere, right? So putting in place plans to have a national data reservoir, and I do understand their plans or recommendations to set up a national data hub, will be one of the things that will make it easy for any players within the private sector to share that data too, such that access controls are put in place to monitor and control who is accessing it, but also making it easier to share it. On the part for how to build trust with customers within the financial sector, we do have sensitive information. So the first step to build trust is to be compliant to the law, to the regulation. So not just banking sector, but every player on this call, if the data subjects trust that we are compliant with the law, maybe they will trust us with their data. But also awareness is very important. Awareness around what data we are collecting, why are we collecting it, who has access to it, how is it stored, is very, very important. We need to inform our customers why we are collecting particular data. I used a random example of a bank asking you your favorite color. We should explain why we are collecting that information. We should explain why we need your parents' details. So that awareness is very, very important in building trust. But also, I think putting back the control back to the customer, setting up easy to use consent management systems where a customer can check in and know how or who to give access to know who has access to their information is very, very important in building trust. And if things fail, I'm not saying things might not always be 100% perfect, but if things fail, do we have adequate incident response planning? Are we transparent on reporting what went wrong? Are we transparent on informing the public of what we are doing to address it? So having a incident response plan that is very adequate, but also transparent, can be very, very crucial in gaining back that trust from the customers. Over to you, Irene.
Thank you so much. That was well said and well explained. I'm sure the audience has fully understood what measures are required to be in place to ensure a building of trust. Thank you so much. I wanted to just make there were members of the audience. You can share your questions also under Q&A, which shall be responded to accordingly by our panelists. But I would like to just inform, I think there's a question under Q&A, directed to Mr. Tenua. I don't know if you've seen it. But there's a question from Mr. Henry Magala. Yes, please, if you'd like to address this question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've read the question. What more should the National Planning Authority do to guide and ensure wrong data, as has been described, is avoided? What I want to say is that I'm glad that the national data strategy, as the previous speaker said, is advocating for creation of a national data bank where we can have all this data collected in, at least converged into one central place so that it can be shared. What we are doing right now, in situations where, as a National Planning Authority, we find ourselves having more than one data set, we usually go with the data from a source that could be trusted. For example, if you remember some time back, we had a number of institutions coming up to give us the national poverty statistics. And we had varying statistics, actually. UBOS came up with some data indicating the national data, poverty statistics. The World Bank came up with some data. The president also had some data that he disputed both the UBOS. He had a varying view. He didn't dispute, but he had a varying view. Now, in such an instance, because the Uganda Bureau of Statistics is the one that is mandated to give us census statistics, even when it may be varied, we are better off quoting an authority that has the mandate to undertake such an activity. So if you want to know, when we have, we won't say we have wrong data per se, because for us at the level of planning, we are secondary data users. After agencies, the primary data collectors have collected it, we synthesize it, we class it, we categorize it to inform decision making. So how do we know that this might be wrong? Is when according to our projections, the data we receive might be a little bit either too divergent, the variance might be big from the normal we expect, or quite low from the baseline that we have. So that's when we might say we are having wrong data, either because different standards have been used to extrapolate and get the figures that may be sent to us. But in that scenario, we normally go with a source that is mandated to give us that data. If we are collecting data, for example, on telecoms, for example, and we have sources from NITA giving us the number of telecom users. We have a source from, say, Ministry of ICT. Then we have a source from UCC, the Uganda Communication Commission. Because UCC is the regulator of the telecoms. However divergent their figure might be from the one of Ministry of ICT and the one of NITA, we will go with the one of UCC, because we as a government entity, we are more protected when we quote the source whose mandate it is to collect this data. I hope I have understood that. Then the second part, yes, presenting, you've attended the National Forum where two institutions were presenting different results on the same indicators. Now, I want to tell you that we have been going through an exercise of harmonizing national data indicators with the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. It has taken the last, I think, 2-3 weeks. We realized that many times in the National Development Plan, we come up with an indicator framework that is used to measure implementation and results of the plan. Now, we realize that in some instances, those indicators differ from the national standards indicator, the national statistics indicators that are being overseen by UBOS. So we've been going through a 2 weeks exercise together with the programs, the government programs, to try and standardize these indicators. So I believe that going forward, we are going to have a more uniformized, standardized indicator framework so that the whole of government is aligned to collecting data on the same items. And I think that is going to improve a lot, especially in the advent of the NDP4. So, Mr. Henry Magala, I hope I've answered you. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So I think I'm not sure if he's still online, but you've answered both his questions. And in case he has any question to seek more clarity, he will communicate. Our audience, we have run out of time. This session was supposed to be for 1 hour. However, we would like to give about 10 minutes to our audience for any other questions or clarifications. Our moderators are available to answer and to give more information. There are some questions that are online.
Actually, Irene, there was one other question that Rachel Arinaitu brought. Dixon actually answered it, so I wonder whether that works. But Dixon answered the question. I don't know whether Dixon, are you still online? They asked you a question and you had an answer for it. That's why it is already answered, not open questions.
Yes, I typed the response. If Rachel is still online, I think it was around the frequent cases reported in some bank, and was asking whether that could be a result of data mismanagement. And my response to that question is it's a fact that data breaches contribute, or are the major contributors for fraud and cases like those. But not all fraud cases are a result of data breaches. It could be as a result of phishing. This is where someone tries to make a website that looks like the one you know, and then in so doing, in interacting with that site, they gain access to your credentials. It could be social engineering, where someone either calls you or SMSs you to reveal critical information that can be used to access your account. It could be inadequate network and access control. So it's a wide range of issues that could go wrong. So it's important to analyze case by case to understand what happened, what went wrong, and what could have been done. So it's very hard without the details of what happened to point it to data mismanagement, although it could be potentially the cause, but we might need more data to analyze what happened in each of those cases.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Dixon.
You're
Yes, Jefferson?
No, I was actually thinking the same. So over to you, Irene. I think
Okay,
for
so
closure.
there are several questions that have now come online. We have some questions. Our panelists, they're open to you. We have a question from Mr. Jungu Karim. His question is, how are data scientists certified to ensure they handle sensitive data responsibly and ethically? And what measures are in place to verify their competence and adherence to privacy regulations independent of their employing companies? So, Mr. Dixon, you could say something, or we could also hear from civil society. Mr. Alan Sempala, you can come in to address this question. Thank you.
I think the controls will depend on each data collector. But from a Stanbic perspective, we do have a data privacy office here that makes sure that that fosters responsible use of data. So we have a wide range of policies and governance procedures we have to go through while processing that data. But we also have a very well-controlled data reservoir whose access is only granted to people who only need to access that information. And every department or unit has curated views, meaning if I'm an analyst for a particular business unit, then I have access to only that information. But other controls include, encrypting our data when transmitting it. Those are almost the obvious network layer management, data management controls. Make sure that when data is in transit, it is secure. Those are some of the controls, but it would depend on case by case and data collector by data collector. For all our data science models, we have a very, very rigorous data governance or governance procedure. Whatever you produce, you must take it through a panel of not just your peers within the data office, but also the requesters, the business. So it is an arena session of from 30 to 50 people. And you have to walk through the features you used, why you used that feature, what algorithms you used. And this is meant to, one, reduce the bias in the data you used, to ensure that you're using data in a responsible way. You're not biasing any category of customers. You're not using unethical data, because we ask which data are you using, what's the source. So those are some of the controls we use internally, but it would differ from each organization. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. I
You're
hope Mr. Jungo is satisfied with the submission. Otherwise, we'll wait to hear from you in the chat. We are left with just 1 minute. Jefferson, maybe you can advise on time. How much more time do we have to the session? We have, I think, 2 more questions.
I'm saying that since we promised 1 hour and 1 hour 10 minutes, I'm thinking we should close it, and these questions can be answered in the chat for the other people, because the next question from Najib Mubiru is related to the one for Junju Karim. I think either Mr. Dixon can actually write something about it so that he can be able to access the answers. And then PDPO has a way of reaching out to all the participants at some point. I know
Yes.
that I need to be doing it for some time, so that can be. I was for my guidance, I would say that we close up today's webinar. So you please go ahead with that.
Okay, so I request panelists and representatives from Personal Data Protection's Office, if you can respond to some of the questions to the members from the audience, that would be good. So in closure, I just want to say thank you very much to our panelists for sharing your knowledge and expertise, and especially your time towards promoting the national data strategy and the agenda that is trying to address as we celebrate the Data Privacy Day. We've discussed several issues and we've had several suggestions of mechanisms to be in place to enable data security and also standardization and some of the challenges that the strategy hopes to address. So I just wanted to say a thank you. I would have wished that the panelists could say a quick closure, but because of time, we cannot have that. I would also like to thank the audience, which was really great. There's very good attendance. Thank you so much for that time. I hope that the session was created value for you, for your time, and we hope that you have gained some appreciation of the work that is being undertaken and what we hope to achieve with the development of the national data strategy. So we have kindly share the contacts. Jefferson, there is someone asking if they could share the contacts of the panelists, but I would like to thank you everyone for your time and wish you the very best in this new week. Thank you. Bye.
Well, just maybe think. Hello, Irene.
Yes, please.
Yes, I'm not sure whether the contacts of the panelists can be shared. They have to agree to that, given that we're talking about data privacy. But the contact for PDPO is shared because everyone got an email from PDPO, so they can actually write the email that invited them for the webinar for any other
maybe you
information.
could they at least paste the email again in the chat so that those who have asked can be able to direct the
Yes,
request.
Anita, please share the email in the chat so that whoever has asked can be able to can write back to you. Oh, it has already been shared in the chat right now, so it can be just right now. It has just been shared.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, Randy, thank you very much for everyone, and hopefully we can meet at another webinar at some point.
Yeah, we look forward to meeting you on further engagements on behalf of the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. Thank you very much. Bye.